And the Coaches Show continues here on AM 1440. And I am joined once again, by Shannon Currier, head coach of the Golden Bears of Concordia St. Paul. Coach, on the docket this week, you travel to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to take on Sioux Falls. The Cougars, winners last week over Minot State, but they lost their opener to Bemidji a couple weeks ago, 24-16. They actually trailed in that game 24-0, made it interesting at the end, losing 24-16. What have you seen on tape from this team? What kind of team is this Sioux Falls club?
They're a very good team, one of the better teams in the conference. Last year, they were a playoff, or 2019, they went to the playoffs. They're a power football team. They're trying to establish the run, play action off that. They have a young quarterback as well, solid running back, a lot of 12 personnel, power, and defensively is very stout. It's hard to get big plays against them. They have a very good defensive front. Just sound football team. They're good on special teams, good depth, and they'll be a challenge for us for sure, especially on the road.
You got a win over Sioux Falls a couple of years ago. What did you learn when you played them a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that game was interesting. It was a game of momentum, like we talked about earlier. We had 2 block punts. We got recovered a fumble on the goal line, in our favor as they were going to go in to score. We just hit some big plays in the game. So we just kind of, I guess, had things going our way, and we need to find ways to create that momentum in this week's game too. But it was a great victory because they were a good team. I think they're more aggressive on defense maybe than they were in 2019. So I'm expecting a better team. But like we talk about every week, it's a chance to be great, and we're just expecting our performances to continue to improve. Today we watched our third down and long situations throughout the first 2 games, and we're just really close to being a lot better. Even though we haven't, I guess, scored a lot of points yet, I see that we're making progress. I was maybe a little bit pessimistic about the offensive line play from the second week, but we want them to be a lot better. Yet we're also a block away here and there from breaking some big plays. And I think as we continue on, we want to be that team that's most improved from week to week to week. And that's our focus this week, is trying to find ways to get better. And it's usually not going to be, glaring differences or big changes we make. It's just real little slight things. We call them slight edges here, that a bunch of those, changes over time create big results. And we're just expecting to hopefully continue to show improvement.
You mentioned last time you played them, you got a block punt, which worked in your favor. Special teams, how big a deal is that going to be this week? And what did you see from your special teams this past week against Upper Iowa?
Yeah, our special teams has been something we really prioritize here. We put a lot of time into it. We do a lot of drill work in a course of practice to continue to enhance the skill sets that it takes to block people on the full speed or block punts. So we commit probably as much time as anybody to that phase of the game. We're probably spending in a 2-hour practice, at least 35, 40 minutes of special teams time. So we try to put our best players on there. If we want to rest a guy, we'd rather rest him on a defensive play or offensive play, because that special teams play is one that exchanges the most amount of yards. So it's really important to us. We put a lot of time into our punt protection. So that's why last week we had a block punt. It's really disappointing because we put a lot of time into those things, and that's the quickest way to have more blocks come upon you, because it's like it's like a shark or a piranha, seeing blood. Whenever you get, I guess, you have some sort of inefficiency within your system, other teams exploit those things too. So we don't want to show any weaknesses in our special teams play, because that just allows other teams to try to take advantage of it. Our freshman kicker was 1 for 2. He had a tough one to get into the win, but then knocked home another field goal in the day. And our punter, I think, averaged like 47 yards a punt on Saturday. So we have some young specialty players, but they're doing a really nice job. And I think we have some depth and some guys that can run and hit. It's a lot more competitive right now on our team to get on the bus. And these first 2 games, we're able to travel 64 players compared to 58 that will take place after this. And therefore, it's really challenging to try to get on the travel bus. We have 130 players, but only 64 get to travel. So guys that can play special teams, a lot of times will take spots over a guy that can. So anyway, special teams is very important.
You mentioned travel and a little bit off subject, but pertaining to travel, and without getting specific with any names, how has your club handled COVID? Because it's it's a factor in college football, and we've seen it around Division I college football. How has your team been handling the COVID situation?
I think our teams responded really well. At one point, our percentages were pretty low in June. We may have had about 25% vaccination rate. But then a lot of players recognize that, hey, I still got to go get tests every week if I'm not vaccinated. If I'm happen to be in a classroom, the weight room, the locker room, the meeting room with another player that has COVID, then I'm out 2 weeks as well. So I think just by us educating them, we had a couple of doctors come in, training staff, different players that have experienced COVID. We try to educate them the best way we possibly could, because ultimately it comes down to their decision. And, right now the vaccination's approved by the FDA, which really helps a lot. So we've raised our vaccination rate towards 85% right now. And of the about, that's supposed to be about 68 guys that we consider right now to take on the road. I think all but 4 of those guys are completely vaccinated. A couple of those guys just finished their second shot, or Sunday, one of the guys has a second shot. But vaccination definitely plays a role in who we play on the road, who gets to go to a meeting maybe, because we just got to protect our team the best way we can. And we have had a couple cases too on the team. So, guys that aren't vaccinated, oftentimes, they're not going to be able to go. This week, we have a particular receiver that just can't make the trip because he's not vaccinated. But that's the way it is. And it'll continue to be part of the game as we roll through this season. So it's not too late to get vaccinated. So we're just trying to continue to ask those questions, educate the guys. And if you're not vaccinated, it's kind of tough. You got to get every Wednesday, you got to get a COVID test. If you're in close proximity to somebody that's had COVID or has COVID, now you got to be quarantined. You got to get a test, come out of quarantine, then you got to go get a test again because it's a game week. So it's just a lot of runaround and a lot of extra work that kids that aren't vaccinated have to go through.
Yeah. One last question for you before I let you go. What playing on the road as opposed to playing at home? You lost the road game at Winona. What has been the emphasis as far as getting the mindset of playing a road game?
We try to make it as similar as we possibly can. The road routine and the home routine. So, for example, on Friday we like to practice for an hour and a half. So that's the intensity level we're looking for on Friday. Thursday, we scale back to 1 hour practice in helmets. We try to start increasing the nervous system Friday. And then, then it's not such a spike from, a lot of times in the past, Fridays where you're like low intensity practices, but then you're asking them to go from that state to a full speed state the next day. I guess science indicates that's best to have that day on Thursday, crank it up a little bit Friday, and then a little bit more on Saturday. So that's, no matter where we play, that's kind of our system of how we practice. In terms of the, at the field, we always eat 4 hours prior to the game, a pregame meal. So that's on the road or at home. And then we try to get to the locker room 2 hours before the game. And so the routine is very similar. We're trying to make it as similar as we can. But the biggest thing we're trying to do nowadays is apply some of the 10-minute mental toughness techniques, and that's the breathing. Breathing is becoming a real popular topic in college football. Just your deep breaths, the 15-second breaths, with the visualization aspects of it, the different statements that they can, the positive statements, affirmations that players say themselves. And we're really trying to stay in the moment. Everybody talks about it, play this play like it's your last play, or focus on the play at hand. That's really easy to talk about, but it's much more challenging to forget the last play and focus on the next one. But that's what we're trying to do as best we can to educate our players how to do that. And this past Saturday, I heard players reminding each other of staying in the moment, forget the last play, focus on the next play. And that's for coaches as well as players. For me, sometimes I get, we all want to win so bad and be successful. So when something doesn't go like it's supposed to go, it's real easy to let that play kind of, I guess, cause you frustration, and then that can carry over to the next play. So we're all, as a staff and players, trying to do the best job we can of focusing on the play at hand and giving that play the very best 100% effort, concentration, focus. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we're trying to help our players understand and do.
All right, Coach. Appreciate the time, and we will talk to you again next week. In the meantime, good luck against Sioux Falls. You got an early kickoff. Is it a noon or a 1 o'clock?
It's 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Okay. Well, that's a little later than you like, but good luck against Sioux Falls.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Walt.
All right. He is Shannon Currier, head coach of the Golden Bears of Concordia St. Paul. Thanks for listening to the Coaches Show. We will talk to you again next week.